We begin today's program up on Capitol Hill, where the Senate is in session, and Senator Bernie Sanders, independent senator from Vermont, is our guest. And Senator Sanders, I want to start with the economy. We have news today that Austin Goolsbee is leaving the White House, and we've got more concern from the White House about the pace of economic recovery. I want your sense of the tone. The president and his advisors have been saying these are some bumps on the road, but things are getting better. Do we need a recalibration in that, in your opinion, to acknowledge how bad things are for a lot of people?
Well, I think the reality is that most Americans know is that the middle class is collapsing, has been collapsing for several decades now. Poverty is increasing, and the gap between the very, very rich, who are doing phenomenally well, and everybody else is growing wider. And what the American people want is the creation of millions of good-paying jobs. We have people all over this country seeing their real wages going down. They're working longer hours for lower wages. So yes, we have to deal with deficit reduction, which is a huge issue. But at the same time, we can't forget about the middle class. We can't forget about very high unemployment, and we've got to create millions of good-paying jobs.
Well, Senator, how exactly does Congress do this? There's of course a lot of criticism from Republicans that Senate Democrats haven't even put up their own version of a budget. So what do you say to those Republicans?
Well, I say this. I say that the budget that they put up, I mean, I got to tell you, in Vermont, and I think throughout this country, is really laughable. The idea that you will give at a time when the top 1% earns more income than the bottom 50%, that you will provide $1 trillion in tax breaks to the wealthiest people in this country and large corporations at the same time as you decimate Medicare, Medicaid, education, environmental protection, makes sense to nobody outside of Capitol Hill. Or maybe people who are not, who are millionaires and billionaires. It may make sense to them, it makes sense to nobody. What we are fighting for, and I'm a member of the Budget Committee, is the concept of shared sacrifice. No, you don't balance the budget on the backs of the sick and the elderly and the poor and the vulnerable. You do ask the wealthiest people in this country and the large corporations, many of whom are making huge profits and paying nothing in taxes, that they have got to contribute to deficit reduction as well.
So is it true, as a member of the Budget Committee, that the reason that there hasn't been a budget produced by Senate Democrats has been your opposition to anything that doesn't include that shared sacrifice, that doesn't include new revenues?
Well, I can't answer that. I have been very, very strong, and I have told Chairman Conrad, who has done a very good job, he's worked very hard on this, that I will not be supporting a budget that comes down on the backs of the middle class of working families. Yes, I believe, and I will not support a budget that does not ask the wealthiest people in this country to pay their fair share of taxes and does away with the huge loopholes that currently exist for corporations.
And what about tackling, though, the real drivers of the deficit, Medicare, Social Security, entitlement spending? Don't we also have to have an agreement on some reform there?
Sure we do. In terms of Social Security, as I think many Americans now understand, Social Security has a $2.6 trillion surplus, has not contributed one nickel to the deficit because its funding comes from the payroll tax, not from the U.S. Treasury. Can pay out every benefit owed to every eligible American for the next 26 years. In terms of Medicare, you got another problem. Medicare does have financial problems, but so does health care in America. The real issue is not just Medicare, it's Blue Cross Blue Shields, it's private insurance companies. Why is it that we end up spending almost twice as much per person on health care as do the people of any other major country on earth, and yet in many cases their health care outcomes are better than ours? Why is that? That's the issue that we have to tackle. And I have to tell you that in my state of Vermont, we may be leading the country to answer that question in terms of moving toward a Medicare for all single payer program.
Senator, I want to shift gears to foreign policy. There's a debate going on at the White House this week about Afghanistan troop levels and what kind of withdrawal we're likely to see next month. In addition to that, we're hearing rumblings that the combat mission in Iraq could be extended beyond the end of the year. What do you make of that, and what kind of reductions do you need to see in both Afghanistan and Iraq to satisfy your concerns about those wars?
Well, this is what I think. I think a couple of things. Number one, we have a huge deficit and a national debt problem. We are spending, or it is estimated we'll spend this year, about $100 billion in Afghanistan alone. This is our 10th year in that war. I think it is fair to say that now is the time to accelerate our troop departure. I happen to believe, having been to Afghanistan, our troops have done a terrific job in trying to build up the Afghan army, their police departments. But at the end of the day, it is going to be the Afghan people and their government and their military and their police who are going to defeat the Taliban, not American troops. So I believe, both from a public policy point of view and from a financial point of view, now is the time to accelerate significantly the departure of American troops. We are not going to leave tomorrow. We should not leave tomorrow. We have a responsibility there. But I think we can and should. In Afghanistan as well, I'm sorry.
And what about
in
Iraq?
I believe the same thing. I think, look, you know, when you want to talk about nation building, I know a great nation that needs to be rebuilt, whose roads and bridges and water systems and educational system needs rebuilding. It's called the United States of America. I would rather invest in this country than in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I don't think you can leave tomorrow either in Afghanistan or in Iraq, but I think we have to accelerate the departure of our troops, who in both countries have done an extraordinarily good job.
Finally, Senator, very quickly, we understand that there's some good news to report on the Made in America front. The Smithsonian, we understand that has come around. What's your take on what they're doing in their gift shop now?
Well, I think they are making some progress. My goal, I was very upset in visiting the Smithsonian, and I love the Smithsonian, great museums. Hope everybody visits them. But their gift shops were selling in very strong numbers products made in China and other foreign countries. We have been working with them to sell products made in the United States of America. This week, they're going to open up a gift shop in the American History Museum, which will be 100% American made. I was on the phone with these guys just the other day. They are making some progress in getting American vendors to start selling to the Smithsonian. We've got a lot more work in front of us, but I think we are making some progress in getting them to sell American-made products.
All right, Senator Bernie Sanders, Independent of Vermont, thanks so much.